All right, guys, so with all that down and out of the way, it's time to take a little bit of movie news.
What?
All right, you guys, and our first bit of movie news we're going to jump right into here. It's a little sad. You may have heard about this. This happened over the weekend. It's kind of it's one of those things that isn't incredibly shocking, but at the same time, it's one more thing to chalk up to. Thanks a lot, 2020. The late, great Sean Connery has passed away at the age of 90 years old. Now, Sean Connery has an incredible pantheon of work behind him. Of course, I don't know if he's best well known, but he's extremely well known for his work playing the titular role of James Bond. He was the one that really popularized the character. He's the one that many people still consider to be the best James Bond we've ever had. There have been 6 James Bonds officially. There have been a few other James Bond characters that have gone by the title. But yeah, Sean Connery is the one that's kind of regarded as the best. If you've watched the show at all, you know that I don't share those same thoughts or feelings. But Jonathan, I'd like to kick it over to you for a second. I know you're a big movie fan. Every now and again, we talk movies and movie news from time to time. Where do you stand on Sean Connery being the best James Bond? And what are some of your other favorite performances of his?
I actually liked Sean Connery better in the movies that wasn't James Bond. Like The Hunt for Red October, the Al Capone one that he did in Chicago.
The Untouchables, yeah. He won an Oscar for that.
Yeah.
Best Supporting Actor.
Right? I felt like and also even the movies with no, not Shaun of the Dead, but movies where he is oh man, I'm blanking. There's so much going on in the world today that part of my brain is distracted. So I feel like a computer that's overwhelmed.
Your processor is at half speed right now.
Half speed. Yeah. The movies that he did for Steven Spielberg.
Oh, Indiana Jones.
Yeah, I felt like once he had the freedom to get away from the James Bond character, he was able to become much more the actor that he was. Whereas before, he was always in those movies predominantly playing a persona. And I get that the other James Bonds have said that they feel like he did that persona better than them. I still feel like it really summed up sort of the Kennedy era. Like it was like the perfect James Bond for that time period of post Eisenhower, Kennedy, even a little bit of LBJ. But it was really more of a persona. And I sort of had the problem with him as not James Brown, but James Bond.
Can you imagine Sean Connery playing James Brown? What a biopic that would make.
James Brown playing James Bond. I feel good. James Bond. Woo,
ow!
James Bond. So the problem I had is that Sean Connery's version, and Sean Connery wasn't in charge of it, but those versions, he was invulnerable, just like Superman.
He was kind of larger than life in that regard a little bit.
And it didn't really have a lot of flaws, except for the flaws that we now look at retrospectively as to his behavior, looking at it with the eyes of in 2020, the way, but I felt like the other characters that he played elsewhere felt more human and felt more realistic. Even Iron Man has more flaws than James Bond as played by Sean Connery.
I think that's a great way to put it, because I've never, we always have this idea about the people that we love to see on screen. We always have this idea about some of the actors that we idolize, and when you go back and look at their performances from 20 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, yes, there are issues and problems with sometimes some of the characterizations. But when you look at a character actor like Sean Connery, he was so brilliant. Now, I also have I have a few reservations with the person Sean Connery. He's kind of become synonymous in my brain as a bit of a jerk. Anytime that I think of Sean Connery, anytime somebody brings him up, I mean, yes, he has this incredible body of work behind him. As you say, The Untouchables. He played Indiana Jones's father in The Last Crusade. Hunt for Red October, Medicine Man, The Rock. You know, he has these incredible performances with this beautiful passion behind it, but at the same time, my mind always, tends to think of, oh, Sean Connery, he's the guy that's only out for himself. And some of these stories that I think of, um, uh, specifically about James Bond, like he had a huge falling out with one of the producers on one of the James Bond films, but he was under contract to finish a certain amount, and at one point he just kind of quit out of spite to one of the producers, and the only reason he came back to do a sixth James Bond film was because he got an incredible deal by MGM, a two-picture deal. Everything was already greenlit. I've heard stories of people meeting him over the years. He wasn't always the nicest of human beings to encounter. And, most recently, most famously, when Skyfall came out, it was the 50th year of James Bond, and every other character, or rather every other actor who had portrayed James Bond in the films, was willing to come out to the Oscars and do this big presentation, and Sean Connery was the only one who said, nope, I don't want to do it, I don't want to be part of it. I don't begrudge him. I don't begrudge him. He had already retired at that time in his life. He had put Hollywood and movie making behind him. He didn't want anything to do with the industry anymore. But it just seems there's this part of me that can't help but think that he's a little ungrateful to some of the people, his fans, who helped make his career as great as it was. Jonathan, do you have a different perspective on it? Because there's a part of me, and you and I have talked on a personal level about people that we know, people in our lives that we know specifically together, and how like maybe my perception is a little bit skewed, and maybe you have a different take on this. Do you have any thoughts on Sean Connery being a bit of a curmudgeon?
Well, sure, yeah. First off, I think he's very Scottish. I mean, you can't put on the fact that he's from Scotland. I mean, they use the C word there, and it means something completely different than what it means in America. And so he's very Scottish in that way, both in the sense of like not taking any gruff or anything in the way of that, but also at the same time not thinking he's bigger than he is,
Mm,
and having sort of an irascibility to him. Like you said, he's very Scottish. I also think that like two thoughts. One, also is very hard because he did that interview in Playboy where he talked about hitting his first wife,
oh, this
and
I'm not familiar
there,
with.
yeah, she said that his first wife said that he hit her and beat her. And in Playboy, he was famous for saying that he thinks that it's okay to sometimes hit women, but you have to give them an open slap, not a punch, like you would a man. Um,
Wow.
Second wife, who he married later on, he was married to for almost 45 years, and she never said anything like that. Not that those things excuse prior behavior, but it seemed like maybe that was something as to who he was when he was in his 20s. John Lennon, in his first marriage with Cynthia Lennon, was a different person and a different
Mm.
man than who he was when he was married to Yoko Ono. So, and again, I'm not saying, oh gosh, because you're in your 20s, it's okay to hit somebody. That is not what I'm
Well,
saying.
I think there's this
But
idea that exists that, when we hear negative things about certain people, we just allow that negativity to stay with us throughout, someone else's lives or careers or whatever. And we like to hang on to that and say, this is who this person is indefinitely. And there is no recompense. There is no repentance allowed for that, individual or organization or, whatever.
right, yes. And the other thing I wanted to say is that I felt that in its own way, the character of James Bond reminds me of the character of Doctor Who. There have been like 13 Doctor Who's, and there's sort of a fraternity of the people who've played Doctor Who. And because there's been like what, six people, as you said, that have played James Bond, six and a half if you include Woody Allen in that one movie where he was doing a
And then
parody
there
of
was
it.
like an American
There,
version that just didn't work.
yeah, there seems to be sort of a similar fraternity amongst most people that played James Bond. That reminds me of the fraternity that exists between the people that played Doctor Who. The difference is, whereas James Bond sort of started out more British, it became very Hollywood, whereas Doctor Who has always remained very UK and British.
Again, that's an interesting take because I've never thought about it in terms of like, but I mean, yeah, you're right. There are a lot of like these fraternal, like if you, same thing for people who've played the president of the United States in any film. Like, I mean, that's a big club too. And there have been organizations of saying like, hey, if you've been like a major actor in a major film who has played this character, come on out and we'll kind of do like a benefit or fundraiser, something along those lines. And but yeah, that's true. And I know a lot of these actors like Daniel Craig and Pierce Brosnan, and of course Roger Moore was the first one to tragically pass away. Even down to Timothy Dalton and George Lazenby. They've all expressed
Right.
their regards and their love of Sean Connery, and same thing with Roger Moore. It's one of those things that we're this is today. This is today, and Sean Connery leaves an incredible legacy behind him. Mostly great. And as we've pointed out, there have been a few bumps in the road. But the question that I want to pose to you guys is what is your favorite Sean Connery performance or Sean Connery movie? And is there any does any of this negativity affect the way that you view him as a human or as an actor or any of his movies or characters? I'd be very interested to know. So jump on down to the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys.
Two more things I want to
Oh
add on
yeah,
quickly.
yeah, please.
Same subject. One, because I was reading about his passing. His wife has come out and said that he actually had dementia, and that the dementia is the reason why he died, and that he'd been
Mm,
having that. I mean, because he was 90, and that he'd been having it for at least 10 years, and his son has also confirmed that. So, if
interesting.
he had it, who knows if he had it at 80, if it was there any point sooner. I read where he hated being in the League of Gentlemen,
Ooh,
that he hated that movie and he hated the director, and that's the reason why he stopped doing movies
yeah,
altogether, was because of that. And, I could definitely see there's a difference between being the person who helps create a mythos and then being a fan who grew up on that mythos. And I could see where there'd be an avalanche of, or huge gulf of difference between the person who helped make something like James Bond and then somebody else, like the director of the League of Gentlemen, who grew up on Marvel and DC and loves the mythos. But there'd be a huge difference because, for Sean Connery, he was never engaged in that sort of mythos. He was playing characters.
yeah, that's true. It was a lot of it was just work for him.
Yeah,
He shows up. He shows up to work. He does his thing. Oh, I'm playing this character today. Great. Like whether it's Darby O'Gill and Little People, or Darby O'Gill from Darby O'Gill and Little People, or the whatever character. I have no idea. I saw the movie when it first came out, but the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, or literally anything in between, because he has this rich pantheon of experience and characters and films behind him. You know,
and wasn't he in Highlander?
say again.
Was wasn't he in Highlander,
He was, yes, he was in Highlander. Um,
where he got to be himself and just be Scottish?
well, didn't he play a Spaniard though? Wasn't he
Yeah,
technically a
he did.
Spaniard or something?
Yeah, he had a tattoo of Scotland on his arm, and he said the most proud day of his life is when um, he got to go to the opening of the Scottish, sort of like their White House, the congressional thing. He was all in favor of Scotland being independent. So, I mean, the more I read about him, the more I went, oh, this guy's just very Scottish.
He's
And Scottish is a very certain
mm,
type of person. And
yeah,
yeah,
no, he was very much a character on screen and off screen. He, as you say, like he had an insatiable love for his home country, for Scotland. So much so that even when he was playing a Russian general, Russian maybe not general, but a submarine commander. Nope, I'm not gonna
yeah.
change my accent. I'm Scottish. It is what it is. Okay, I'm gonna be playing a Spaniard and Highlander. Nope, not gonna change my accent. It is what it is. Oh, I'm playing Indiana Jones's father, an American. No, not gonna change my accent. It is what it is. Um,
How much do you think Saturday Night Live changed our impression of Sean Connery? Because of,
oh, Daryl Hammond.
yeah,
Oh, that's a great question. Um,
when it went from us recognizing, oh, this is something we see about Sean Connery that we didn't realize that we saw, but there it is, to then that started really changing our perception of it because then that became more like the truth, sort of like how Sarah Palin changed the more Tina Fey played.
well, I tend to think of it in the same. Well, yeah, same thing with Tina Fey or even Will Ferrell playing W. I think that there's. I, I would like to think that our perception of Sean Connery didn't change that much. It was just that a new characterization was born, and so like we have the man, the myth, and then we have this wacky character that has now become a huge part of pop culture. So, it becomes very popular to say, what was your mother doing last night, Trebek? So,
Right. Yes.
and the same thing with W, he had his catchphrases that Will Ferrell popularized, or even when Will Ferrell did, hey, Chicago announcer, based Harry Carey, thank you. Yeah, when he was doing his Harry Carey, that's not who Harry Carey was. That was a gross exaggeration of who Harry Carey actually was. But that was just Will Ferrell's bizarre take on the character, and then that kind of became like the pop culture persona.
Similar like Chevy Chase with Gerald Ford.
Yeah, just a bumbling idiot, just falling over a
Right.
Christmas tree.
Yep.
Same thing. Anyway, guys, yeah, so Sean Connery, he left an incredible legacy behind him. What are your favorite Sean Connery performances, movies? And like, do you have any specific memories of Sean Connery, maybe in pop culture? Has anyone actually been able to meet the man, shake his hand, or maybe take a photo with him? I would be very interested to know. Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts there. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you like this video, click like. If you really like this video, click subscribe. And if you really, really like this video, click share. Because that is exactly what Scrooge McDuck would want you to do. DuckTales, woo!